Hey guys, what's happening? We are talking today.
I almost said what's working Wednesday. We are not on Wednesday. Oh
This
my
is
God. It's
Friday.
It's been a long month this week, guys.
Yes, well said. It has been a long one. We are talking about the 7 mindset habits to adopt for an optimal life. That is awesome and a mouthful.
I was going to say that's a mouthful. I think it's just 7 good habits to start being aware of, to start implementing it. Oh my gosh, today I cannot talk.
To have a resilient mindset, right?
Because with all of being in sales, honestly, life in general is just hard, right? Life is lifing. Life is hard. So why make it harder on ourselves? Like, there's no reason to.
Well, there's, certain easy things you can start weaving into your patterns and your daily routines that can alleviate a lot of the stress, reactivity, egocentrism, a lot of that stuff that really is self-defeating and causes us to have so much turbulence and stumbling along the way.
Yeah, I think, we talk about this a lot and we have to catch ourselves. Like, are we in the victim mindset? Is everything happening to us and, oh my God, the world is terrible? Or are we in the author mindset of like, we have to take accountability of our actions and the things that we can control and kind of let go of everything we can't control because it's out of our control.
So good. So good. So number 1 is of the 7 mindsets to adopt to have just live your best life. Take full accountability for your actions. I go right to extreme ownership by the guys that wrote Extreme Ownership.
By the guys that wrote it, Extreme Ownership.
It'll come to me.
Yeah. Well, I think, I was listening to things and trying to gather some ideas for this. And it was like, if a business fails, who's responsible? The CEO, right?
Yeah.
If the business thrives, who's responsible? CEO. Usually the CEO.
Right.
So why aren't we taking our life as an analogy behind it of like, we have to make sure our shit is running tight and running for it because we are the ones in control of our lives and we can be the CEO. So having that just as a good analogy to be like, shit is always going to fall on us. So we have to take extreme ownership. And I feel like Ryan and I are some of the first people to be like, it's our fault. Okay, how can we fix it?
And it was Jocko Willink and Leif Babin, by the way. Jocko's obviously amazing.
It came back to you.
But it's like being a real assessment. Like humility is not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less, right? And also humility is having a real reality sense of what you're good at, your aptitudes, what you're not so good at, what you could use work at, and then proceeding from there. But so many of us want to deflect. We're quick to point blame away from ourselves because it's a defense mechanism, right? It's like, don't look at me over here, nothing to see here, right? And so when you can take that in and take accountability for your actions, for the blunders you've made, maybe you did a bad flip, maybe you haven't been prospecting the way you should, maybe you did other things in your personal life. We all can look back and see a big smoking smolder, like crater in our lives at times, and you just own it, get better from it, and keep moving. It's that kind of realistic viewpoint that means take accountability. What was my part? What was somebody else's part? I can fix my side.
And which leads us into number 2. So first, taking full responsibility. We have to be the CEOs, the creators of our own life. We have to be in that author mindset of like, we write this shit. This is our life.
Yeah.
So number 2 is having that growth mindset. So having the mindset of always being, how can we improve on this? Learning lessons, like those kinds of things. So that's why we are always listening to podcasts, always trying to read different books, always trying to see where we can have more growth for ourselves because you're never as good as you were yesterday, right? It's about being 1% better every day.
Yeah. A growth mindset and a fixed mindset is essentially when you see a problem and you're like, well, this is who I am. I get angry or I'm just anxious and that's just the way it's going to be. Whereas a growth mindset is like, well, this is an opportunity for me to get better. This obstacle, where inside of this obstacle is there an opportunity? This shitty week I'm having, what is it that I can change and grow from this little experience? Because look, good and bad is going to happen, peaks and valleys. And one thing we know is when you're right in the middle of the shitstorm or you're walking through hell, don't stop.
Just
you gotta keep moving. And the growth mindset is one that adopts the fact that somewhere in all the turbulence, all the chaos is a nugget for me to not have to repeat this, right? To lean in and get the lesson here that life or the universe or whatever you subscribe to is teaching me and then get better and not have to suffer this turbulence again.
Well, I think that's huge how you pointed it out, having the growth mindset of like learning lessons through the losses, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, or learning lessons through the challenges so we don't have to repeat those same lessons. And then having that fixed mindset is like, oh man, this is just the way I am. And how many of us have said that? Like I said, every time I tell myself like, oh, well, it's just like me. I have to change that to be like, well, how can I be better at this? Or who can help me be better at this versus like, well, it's just the way it is.
You
right?
ask better questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, and by the way, it's messy. It's not like you arrive and all of a sudden everything, you're like ninja, like spiritual ninja of like, I can accept this, right? It sucks. It hurts. We get hurt. We cry when we get hurt. We bleed when we get cut. Like we're human. We're all subject to the human condition. But the limit of that, or the extent of that suffering is limited by the fact that you can say, well, this sucks. That really blows, but I can do this about it. I can get into action and I can correct and do things better or find the gold like bar in the problem.
Mm-hmm. If you talk to any CEO, entrepreneur, that is one of their biggest things is like, no, there's no losses. We're just learning from them. And then you look at successful people and they have like a stack of failures like this all. And like it only took like that 1% that they were able to succeed in, which was able to push them to where they needed to go. So,
and they're just not afraid to keep going and learning when there's setbacks. So.
Yep. So leading us on to number 3.
This
is Ryan's favorite. So I'm going to let Ryan take this one away.
This has revolutionized my life. It's called practice gratitude every single day. So it's, it's science that when you wake up, you get a shot of cortisol to like from caveman days to look around, make sure there's no T-Rex or saber-tooth tiger coming for you, right? There's a rattle in the bushes. It could be there to take you out and have you for lunch. But those caveman days are gone. And now Deborah at work, who doesn't want to like approve my expense account, is like, just like the T-Rex in my brain. So that brain, that negativity bias, which is the baseline for the human brain, is working against us today. So one way to neutralize that and get to the positive is by being grateful for what we have in this moment. Just acknowledging that I have breath in my lungs, I have a heart pounding in my chest, I've got food in the fridge, a roof over my head, a car that starts when I want it to. Acknowledging and starting with what's right allows you to see more of what's right.
Yeah, well, I think it kind of sets the tone, at least for me, it sets the tone of the day. And when like the shit happens throughout the day, because like, let's be honest, in sales, it's a roller coaster of emotion. 1 minute you get a deal, next minute you're fired, next call you get a $3 million deal. Like it is all over the place. So by having that gratitude mindset in the morning, it really helps me set the tone for the day of like, whatever comes at me is not going to be that bad, right? Yeah. Like it helps you see some clarity. And I really like how you use the analogy of like, the saying of like, my heart's beating, I'm able to still breathe, because there's I think it's like 150,000 people daily that didn't wake up today. Right. And so that is just, if you had that simple shift of perspective, right? When you wake up of like, there was 150,000 people that didn't get to do this morning, and I get to wake up still. It just helps set that tone of the day when shit happens, because it's going to happen. You can find that moment of gratitude of like, hey, I'm still here. These challenges are coming to me for a reason. How can I work through these? Where can I find the lessons in these challenges? So it just allows you to kind of rewire your brain a little bit versus looking for all the shit problems. You're going to see shit. But if you look for the good, you're going to find it.
It brings you to the present moment, because something I'm upset about, or if I'm experiencing suffering, it's probably because I'm tripping and gripping on something in the future or some regret from the past. Either way, I'm tied to an expectation, right? Gratitude gets you in the present for what's good now, and then sets up, like you said, frames the day for more of that throughout the day.
So this one is one that I just hit my mic. Sorry if that was aggressive on the sound there.
Is this thing on?
But we talk about this a lot. Like we have to get rid, item 4, getting rid of the perfectionism, getting rid of everything trying to be perfect.
Yeah.
Done is better than perfect, progress over perfection, right?
Amen, sister.
Those should be written on a whiteboard at all times in your office, all times with you, like progress over perfection.
Well, I mean, when Rob talked about it in the video he did in his podcast, this is from a Rob Dial podcast, amazing stuff. He says it, look, perfectionism is a mask for lack of confidence and for fear. Like, what am I scared of? I'm scared of fucking things up, and that's how you do. You kind of fuck it up to figure it out, right? Because, like she said, stack of failures this big, or mistakes, or screw ups, but isn't that how we learn? Is by getting in there and breaking all kinds of eggs to hopefully end up with an omelet. That's life. That's the process of learning, is you're going to make mistakes. You're going to be flawed. You're going to be exposed to the world as what you did, if it worked or it didn't work. Either way, you're exposed. So you got to push through that fear and just get into action, because through actions and tons of repetitions, you'll find a way that works.
Well, we work with a lot of realtors, a lot of lenders. We sit down with them and they're like, but I'm just a perfectionist. It has to be perfect. And when we listen to this podcast, it's so true. Like, that saying you're a perfectionist is kind of just the mask of like, what is your fear? Are you afraid of getting on the call and afraid of being rejected, afraid of actually getting some wins and having that success and being like, oh shit, this actually is working. So when we say we're a perfectionist, really ask yourself the question of, what am I trying to protect? Really, like, what fear am I trying to protect by saying, oh, I'm just a perfectionist? Because nobody is perfect. I hate to break it to you. There is nobody that's perfect.
We all messed up.
And I think Ryan was the first one I heard this saying for. It's like, every toilet has a house, right? There's shit in every house. Exactly. So it's like, nobody is perfect. So we have to kind of kill that word whenever we hear ourselves saying like, oh, well, I'm just a perfectionist, or it has to be perfect. What are we really hiding behind and saying that of why we don't want to push through that comfort zone?
Well, and it's not pragmatic at all, because how the heck do you know what to change, what to scale up, how to course correct, what to eliminate if you don't give it several trials out in the marketplace or out, test it out there and give it a chance to breathe in a day in court? You don't have any feedback. So it just remains behind this closet, this beautiful thing, that this idea you had, this creation you had, never sees the light of day. So you don't know if it needs improvement, if it's perfect, you just don't know. So you got to get it out there, fuck it up and figure it out. And we all experience fear. Fear is literally, by definition, just you being outside your comfort zone. It's new, it's unknown, uncharted territory. So we all experience fear. The key is just to get into action, iterate, do more, and learn along the way.
So I think that leads us into our next one.
Numero 5?
Numero 5. Sorry, we have to look at notes.
Numero
We actually
cinco.
Took notes here, guys. We
prepared.
So we prepared.
So
yes. So this one is, I really enjoy this one because it is kind of what we've mentioned before, reframing any kind of loss that you say that you had or a failure. What are the lessons out of that? So reframing to being like, oh, well, that messed it up, but how can I learn? What can I course correct in there? And I feel a lot of us too, we do not really look at the failures and have a course corrective like, well, how can we learn from this? Like when we mess up a meeting and we look at each other and we're like, oh, we dropped the ball on that one.
Right.
Where can we learn? How can we take that and use it to help us be better in the future?
Instead of beating yourself up and getting into all the self-loathing and self-criticism, just do an autopsy and say, this worked, this didn't work, we could do this better, need more of that, they really responded to this, and just be real. To go in there and think that you're going to have every consult or every round of golf or every phone call be exactly the way you draw it up, that's not how life works. It's messy and it goes on tangents and you're just going to screw some stuff up. But you can collect the data and do better next time.
Mm-hmm. Well, I love the saying of like, speed as fast as you can to failure, right?
Yeah, velocity.
Like, velocity to failure, because the quicker you get to the failure, the quicker you're going to get to the success. So fail as much as possible, as quick as possible.
It's like videos, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure we weren't decent like this in our first 3 videos.
I don't even want to look at those. I don't even want to fight. We probably did the starting of introducing ourselves and who we are and what we do.
We definitely weren't like authentic.
No.
But we have a long way to go. I mean, we only know a little.
And like, we still have so much more. We hear things all the time where I'm like, oh shit, we have to tweak that. Or, ooh, this is a good nugget. We got to try this. Because guess what? When we try it, if it doesn't work, scratch it, on to the next, but we at least gave it a try. But I love the analogy of like speeding as fast as you can to failure, because when you keep failing, you know that success is going to be right on the other side because you're able to tweak, course correct, change this, fix this, because Apple wasn't built in a day. Amazon was not built in a day. Any successful business partnerships or businesses in a day. I mean, sometimes I guess YouTube, I think of the guy who has all the toys, Ryan's toy guy.
Oh, yeah.
That did not build in a day, but look at how much success that has had over time.
Consistent. And I mean, I think one of the things, and I think it's number 6, is getting out of this negative thought pattern, this taking out the stick and beating yourself up inside your own mind. Because really examine, how do you talk to yourself? Because be our best friend inside our head and say, you got this. that person can help you and reframe to positivity.
I think it's so big. I mean, we all have negative self-talk. It all creeps in. And as woo-woo as it sounds, like that is why affirmations are so good to have, because it helps re-switch that negative mindset that our mind instantly wants to go to, because that is what protected us. Like Ryan said, and back in the caveman days, that's how we were protected. It's like, oh, well, we shouldn't go out there because there's going to be a tiger. Like we're going to die. So it was always to protect us. But now we have a mindset of we can step outside of that a little bit with a little more positivity, because like Ryan said, life is hard enough. Being a human is already hard enough. And when we beat ourselves up, it just makes it worse. So why beat ourselves up? And we have a little joke on our team whenever like I hear Ryan saying something or I say something, it's like, don't talk about my friend that way. And I had to say that to my friend the other day when she was going off and like saying all these things. I looked at her and said, don't talk about my friend that way. And she was like, I know. And it's so true, because when you talk about yourself, we are our own best friends. Like we have to take care of ourselves. And so we can't let our negative self-talk, that little mice with the megaphone, overpower, like we've gone through tough shit and we can keep going through it.
Absolutely, man. Pick yourself up, give yourself, a little pep talk when you need to, but something to keep in mind is the most impressionable thing that we are is what holds the most influence over us is our internal dialogue. And so stand guard at the gateway of your mind. What you let in here weaves its way into your internal dialogue. What you stand for, how you let people talk to you, the shit you believe in, all ends up in how you talk to yourself. And if you don't believe me, sit there and try to be completely quiet with no thoughts for 5 minutes. And that thing will start chirping. And if it's not nice, change it. You have the ability to change the station in your head. And that's an important thing.
I think it's huge. And we have been practicing positive self-talk. Practice your affirmations. Come up with some. There's plenty of online gurus and online people that will give you affirmations that you can tell yourself every day. I think it's Mel Robbins. She looks in the mirror every single day and says, I love you 100 times before before even getting her day started, because you have to love yourself. That's how you protect yourself. That's how you know your boundaries, your self-talk, all of those things. So having that positive self-talk would be a huge game changer. And we challenge you to test it. Every time you hear that little voice creep in of like, this is just like me, change that. Change it. Well, why? Who can help me with this? How can I get better at this?
I'm working towards being better. I'm working at getting really good at setting appointments on the phone. I'm working at it. And it's true. True statement, positive slant on it, propels you forward instead of like burying a hole and you want to hide away from the world.
Right? Which we all have those days. It happens.
In the fetal
position. You can pull yourself out of it. So the last one we have is really the habit of falling in love with the fear. Because fear, when you feel that fear inside of you, that is your body physically giving a manifestation of going outside your comfort zone, right?
Absolutely.
Like that, when I get a little fearful, I know it's maybe something I haven't done before. Maybe it's testing my boundaries. There's all those things, but I know if I can just push through that fear, now I'm on the outside of that comfort zone.
Oh, it's so good. I think it's the Untethered Soul, but it talks about when you touch a hot stove or you cut yourself, pain is the way that the body communicates with the brain, right? So on the internal side, your psyche, the way it communicates with your mind is through fear, because it's saying we're entering a new zone here. I haven't dealt with this person before. I have not been in this situation before. So the cortisol comes in and you're like, oh, and you want to run. You're in fight or flight, right? And you're in the parasympathetic and it's like, ah. So slow down and get curious and say, what is it about this situation that's causing anxiety and fear within me? What can I do about it? Like when the Navy SEALs get dropped into behind enemy lines, they say, okay, what do I know? What can I control? What can I do about it? And then like a 3-foot world around them. Same thing. When you're overwhelmed in a scenario, say, okay, what is freaking me out about this? What's true? What's not true? Separate fact from fiction. What's in my control? And then work like hell on what you can control.
I think discomfort is a sign of growth, right? Like
Absolutely.
We've talked about it before, like the lobster who has to grow a new shell because they get bigger goes through an extreme amount of pain and growth while they are shedding their their skin shell. I'm like, what is it called, a shell? What's that word I'm looking for? They go hiding, they go into darkness, and they grow an entire new shell because their body has gotten bigger. That is a lot of discomfort they go into to become a bigger version of themselves. So we have to use that as like, we are lobsters, we're always growing, and we have to break out of those shells to become the next version of
Or
ourselves.
it's like if you squat 200 pounds, like some people, that's gonna hurt. And is your
I might
muscle
not be
sore
able
the
to
next
walk.
day?
I was gonna say I might not be able to walk.
So there's
tomorrow,
pain
but
involved in
yes.
that. But what happens? What does the muscle do?
I get a bigger booty.
Or it grows so that the next time it encounters that level of difficulty, right, it will be more prepared to handle the 200-pound squat.
Yes.
Or your psyche will arrive at such a point or grow and expand to such a threshold where when you get inserted to that scenario that freaked you out before, you'll be a little bit more prepared.
Oh,
You'll know what to do. Hey, I've seen this before. I got this. You know what I mean? And you do it enough times, iterate, then now you're like, oh man, I've seen this movie before. Here's what you do when this happens. Here's what you do when that happens. And the fear is gone. And then you have to push yourself outside again to grow even more, which involves fear and pain and all the things.
And discomfort, all the things.
That's just the human experience, man. I mean, it's crazy.
It is. And so to reiterate, so the 7 like little mindset shift hacks just to overall make life a little bit better.
Well, what does mindset even have to do with selling? We're here talking about the salespeople. We are salespeople. Why do we need to know this mindset crap?
We have to guard our minds because it is like the one thing we can control what we're putting into it. And when the day is chaotic, like I was saying earlier, when you get one deal, then you're fired the next deal and your escrow's going sideways and the appraisal didn't come up at needed and the buyers can't bring in the appraisal gap. All these things that go on, we have to be the one to control what's in our mind.
We have to bring our best version of ourselves to the day. Not my best Ryan ever, but the best Ryan today. I can bring him in by doing these things, which number 1, I take full responsibility for my actions, right or wrong, messed up or perfect. I have to take full accountability. It starts with recognizing.
It starts with having that full accountability, right? Like recognizing that. And then you have to always have a growth mindset because when you have that fixated mindset of like, oh, I know this, or I already got this, you're not growing. You're dying, right?
It's impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows.
Mic drop. There you go. Done with that one. Then number 3, practicing gratitude. I know it sounds like, oh, here they go again, talking about gratitude.
So grateful.
But it really, really does. We challenge you to just try it for, give yourself 3 weeks of every morning, whether it's 3 small things that you think of right in the morning, whether you wake up and you just can say, I am grateful that my heart is beating and that I'm still breathing. Or you're grateful that you can move your body, that you can go on a walk. Like there's people that can't do that. So we have to remember.
Yeah, what you focus on expands. So if you focus on the good will expand.
Number 4.
Let me look at the
You
notes.
look down. You couldn't remember.
The perfectionist mindset is nobody's perfect. And actually the way you get good is by screwing up a lot, right? And getting all the lessons and applying them and getting better the next time. So perfectionism is a complete myth. And it's usually masking lack of confidence or fear, which we all experience. It's not you, and then there's us. It's all of us, okay? So we all do this at some level, but just push through it and just get into action and do it, and you'll find your way of getting better through repetition.
Well, I like how that leads into number 5, which is learning to be okay with the failure and learning the lessons in the losses. Because if we're trying to perfect everything, we're going to fuck shit up. And then we're going to get mad at ourselves because it's like, oh, I messed it up again. Yeah. So we have to kill that and just be okay with fucking up and figuring it out. The faster we fail, the faster we will succeed.
Exactly. And then keep yourself in a positive mindset with positive self-talk. Instead of like, I fucked that up again, or I'm such a piece of shit, say, hey, how can I do that better? What's the lesson in this for me? How can I get leverage on this? Who can help me with that? Ask better questions because the hippocampus actually has to answer a question you give it. So ask better questions.
I love that. And then number 7, falling in love with the fear, falling in love with coming outside of your comfort zone, having that little doing it anyways and just one step in front of the other and falling in love with if I'm fearful, I'm getting outside my comfort zone.
And it's not like, oh, I'm scared shitless. I'm not going to go anyway. It's like, you know what? Just slow down. Just say, hold on a minute. What, is this really coming for me? Is this really going to kill me? Okay, no. Okay, so what is it that I'm scared of? And just observe at first and then see if it's real or irrational and then move through it.
We're talking about life fears, not not wanting to go on X3 at Six Flags because I'm scared shitless of that. That's a completely different fear.
Don't go through that neighborhood after 10.
Yeah, there's certain fears that are there to protect us, but fall in love with the fears where it's outside of your comfort zone a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's
7 things to help you that help us.
Yeah, that's what we got today. And If you like this one, let us know. If you have things that have helped you throughout your day, let us know. We love feedback. We love commentary.
Yeah, tell us what we got wrong. Tell us what we got right. Give us feedback because we can own it and learn from it.
Yeah. Oh, see how you tied that in. Well, thank you guys so much, and have a great rest of your weekend. And let's go the birds. I think that's what I'm going for. I think that's what I'm going for.
I'm all Kelsey and Swift, baby. Let's go.
Oh God,
Let's
you
go
would be.
Chiefs.
So, bye.
Bye.